Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Recha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Micah, the second chapter, continuing from where we left off in Micah, the first chapter, as Micah was prophesying concerning the displeasure of the Lord against Israel and the judgment that would come upon them, starting with the northern kingdom and over to the southern kingdom as they started to follow in the ways of the northern kingdom. So in the second chapter here, we see that he addresses a lot of the wicked and oppressive ways, which it wasn't just Micah that addressed this, right? You had even going back before him, Amos, Isaiah, Hosea, right? They all, and other contemporary prophets, they were addressing some of the prevalent issues that were going on in Israel at the time. Some being the oppressive ways plus oppression from the rich or the nobility against the poor. All right, and then also you had a heavy presence of idolatry, okay, amongst other thievery, robbing, and fraudulent ways, which the law is against, right? The Lord told us that we shouldn't be doing that amongst one another. All right, so he pretty much prophesies about that, and then to the latter end, as you know, is the pattern with some of the other prophets. There's the reassurance that when it's all said and done, the Lord is still going to have mercy on us and gather us and relieve us of this condition. Now, there are particular verses in this chapter that we use today, right? They apply now in our sense, right? Whether to Babylon or to Esau, Edom. Okay, but there's also the historical sense of who Micah was prophesying to at the time and what they were doing there as well. So this is Micah chapter 2, verse 1. Woe to them that devise iniquity. And devising iniquity, devising is to plan, right? Or to scheme. And iniquity is troubles or wickedness. So you had individuals starting off, at least back then, prevalent in Micah's time, that would plot these things, right? Whether it's different ways to make money off of the less fortunate by by way of oppression, or by way of bribery, okay, against bribery to the judges or whoever they would take this their matters up to. Okay, but many different ways of committing iniquity. It says, and work evil upon their beds, right? Same thing. And that working of evil is that coming up and scheming with those evil plans upon their beds. And this is because usually during the daytime, you're doing things, right? But in the evening time or the nighttime, you know, you're home, you get to reflect, you get to think, you get to plan out your next day. And that's what they would be doing. They would be planning out, you know, ideas and plans on how they can make themselves better and have a more comfortable or fun or rich life at the expense of others, because that's usually how it goes, right? If you can exploit others, you can make life more beneficial for yourself. So as it says, when the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hand, right? So they put this into action because they had the power to do so. Now, what did this look like back then in ancient Israel? As even in verse 2 is going to tell you what are some of the things that they did, okay, and how they did it. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to read verse 2 and then break it down. And they covet fields, right? So they through their greed, they desire fields or land, not theirs, and take them by violence, okay, or by robbery or by force, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, right? His property, his land, even and his household, even a man and his heritage, which is what he inherited, which is what is his. Now, one example of this dealing in ancient Israel was the account of Ahab and uh, was it Naboth? I believe that might have been his name. But when you read in the book of Kings, right, there's the account of Ahab. He wanted the land of an individual. The individual said, "No, I'm sorry, I can't give this land to you. It's my inheritance." Ahab goes home sad, and then Jezebel, his wife, pretty much writes letters in his name and sends them to the people of the land and say, "Hey, kill this man." Right? If I remember correctly, I think she said like, bring like come up with some charges, some false charges, and have him murdered or put to death so that Ahab can get the land. Okay, that was a prime example of coveting, right, the field or the land of another and taking it by violence. But there were other means in which they did this, right? You would have cases where, once again, bribery, right? You might have a farmer who may have land and he may be in debt, so he may pledge something, okay? But his debtor or these ones that were rich that would lend would say, hey, I kind of want his land. So they would either come up with some like BS charges or interest or some ridiculous and wicked scheme to be able to get that farmer's land, to say, hey, well, if you can't pay off your debts, then you got to give me your land, or you got to give me a part of this, or you gotta come and serve me or work for me, right? So there were many ways of doing this where even if you did take it before a judge, since these people were rich, they would use their influence and their money to maybe bribe the judge to then have the case go in their favor, and they can get the title of the land and so on and so forth, right? And this was through that coveting, okay, and using this robbery and thievery and this like strong arming against those that were weaker, right, and lesser in society or family status, to then take advantage of them and take what they had. All right, and then there's a precept for this. I believe Amos also, addressed the same thing, right? And like I mentioned, other prophets as well, because this was something that was ongoing. This is Amos chapter 8, verse 4. Hear this, O ye that swallow up the needy, even to make the poor of the land to fail. Why? So that so that they could end up getting all those resources for themselves. Right? I believe it's Isaiah that mentioned, woe unto them that join house to house. And in order to do that, it's like what Amalek does today, right? Where they'll go and then they'll find a way to kick you out of the land or the neighborhood, and then they'll remodel it for them. Gentrification, they call it. Now, like I mentioned, this was something that, wicked Israelites were doing back then, but also in this application now, as we mainly use it to apply to to Esau, because they are now in this stead, right? They are in the stead of the position to be able to plan and devise iniquity. The scriptures say the earth has been given into their hand, right? So you can think of like on a historical and smaller scale, right? Esau is doing it now on a larger scale, where it's not just like rich people in the land, right, oppressing the poor of their own people in the land. These devils are doing this on a world scale, on a world level. That's why mainly when we go into Micah 2:1, right, or 2:2, we attribute it or we apply it to them now, because they're sort of in that stead as well. All right, where they have these meetings, they have these plannings behind closed doors, right? And when the morning is like they practice it now, the way they practice it looks quite different than how wicked Israelites did back then, because these people, these Edomite elites, have the power to influence nations, governments, large bodies of people through social media, through mainstream media, right, through political deals and underhanded deals and all of those things, and they have the power to do so. And the fields that they covered it's not just like one plot or two plots of land, or no. When they go after fields, When they go after farmers, they do it on a corporation level, like what they're doing now. Telling them, no, you can't use these kinds of seeds. You got to use the seeds we provide you. Matter of fact, you got to get off the land. We're going to take it. There's something going on. We got to investigate. Next thing you know, you lost your property. You lost all of those things. They do that. And then they do it on a geopolitical level. They see resources in a different country. They come up with a scheme, okay, to get in that country, to set up a puppet ruler, a puppet king, and have control over it and its resources. So the people in that region are now oppressed. Their heritage, what was given them, what has been passed down to them within their nation, is now under the control of Esau, Edom. Okay, so those are the two ways in which Micah 2, in this sense applies, right? Because this is how it was being done back then, but also how it's being done now with Esau being in this stead. Verse 3, therefore, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, behold, against this family do I devise an evil, from which ye shall not remove your necks. Okay, so once again, in past times, this being Israel, the Lord devised or planned an evil or a bad time against them, which, remember that Micah prophesied, and during his ministry, he witnessed the downfall of the northern kingdom by the Assyrians, which happened before, obviously, the southern kingdom. Of course, they didn't, well, Jerusalem wasn't taken over by the Assyrians, but they were still subject to the Assyrians to a degree before the Babylonians, of course, came in and did what they did, right? So the Lord, as he says here, against his family, which starts with Israel, because they were the ones in context that this was addressed to, but now we know that this is now, these shoes are being filled by Esau, you could say, right? In any case, the evil that the Lord planned was at that time bringing these enemies against us that would then have the upper hand and put us in captivity, and so on and so forth, from which ye shall not remove your necks. So this evil that is planned is like unto a noose that you're not going to be able to take off of your neck. You're going to be trapped and caught by this one. And as history proves to us, we saw that they weren't able to escape this. Neither shall ye go haughtily, right, or proudly, for this time is evil. So you're no longer are you gonna walk about, with your head held high. You're doing wickedness, but you're profiting off of it. So you're walking around like you're untouchable. No more, no more of that. For this time is evil, right? For this time of the judgment the Lord is gonna bring is gonna be bad. Okay, that you're not gonna be able to do that. And in our modern day sense, the way the Lord is going to do this evil that he is devising is this ultimate destruction that he's going to bring to Esau, Edom, okay, from which they will not be able to escape. I believe it says in Isaiah 47, right, which is a prophecy about Babylon, right, and Esau. And it mentions the Lord is going to bring evil, and thou shalt not know from whence it riseth, and you wouldn't be able to escape it. Verse 4, in that day shall one take up a parable against you, and lament with a doleful lamentation, and say, we be utterly spoiled. He hath changed. So this is let me pull this up in a different translation to make it more apparent. In that day your enemies will make fun of you by singing this song of despair about you. So it's like a taunting proverb / lamentation about the condition that we were in, okay, at least that Israel would be in when the Lord brought this judgment upon them. And that would be saying that we are utterly spoiled. Primarily, those that would be mainly affected, though, all the tribes or all of the nation, which was parted into the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, were affected at different times. Those that were benefiting the most, right, that were heavily into this wickedness, which would be the rich, the nobility, those in the princes, right, that were corrupt. As it says, we be utterly spoiled, right, having lost all of the profits and benefits, and now going through hardships, because when you're under siege, it doesn't matter how rich you are. You're subject to these conditions as food runs out, All right. And eventually when the enemy breaks those walls, you get taken as a captive just like everybody else. But there's like a ironic or poetic justice in here where, as it says, we be utterly spoiled. He hath changed the portion of my people. How hath he removed it from me? The portion here being like the land. So these wicked Israelites, right, who had power, had authority and influence, and used that to change the portion of the rest, right, to take the lands of other others that were less fortunate than them, to defraud other Israelites and to gain more lands onto theirs while taking away others, are now complaining about having their portions taken from them, having their land or their inheritance taken from them. And as it says, turning away, he hath divided our fields. Turning away meaning to repurpose it, right? So in this case, the Lord reallocated their land to their adversaries. And now what's interesting about this is when you actually look at what the Lord did, when the Assyrians came against the northern kingdom and they ended up putting them under siege and then taking them away captives, they actually literally did do this because they removed or deported Israel out of their land, and then they imported heathens into that land. Okay, so the Lord used them and reallocated their land to heathens. All right, so much so that the Lord, or they had to ask the Assyrian king to send a Levite to come in, or a priest to come and show them how to actually dwell in the land, because they came in there doing straight abominations and not respecting the laws of the land, and the Lord sent lions to kill them. Verse 5, therefore thou shalt have none that shall cast a cord by lot in the congregation of the Lord. Meaning, you're not going to have a say in how your land is now divided or given away. Those that cast a cord by lot, casting a cord was like measuring the bounds, right? Remember during the time of Joshua, when we were conquering the land of Canaan, we the lands were allocated, right? And there were measurements from this place to this place, from the north border, which is by this city, and the south border, which is by this city, and the east and the west. This would be the land of Judah. This would be the land of this. This would be the land of that. And even within the tribes, you know, as they would allocate lands, they would measure this portion would be for this family, this portion for that family. And they would do it by lot because that would be divinely inspired. But here the Lord is saying, you're not going to have anyone to do that because you won't be in a position to have a say in how this land is now getting allocated or reallocated. Verse 6. Now, keep in mind that we're reading this, but Micah was prophesying this, and there were people that were hearing this. And so their response, as it says, was, prophesy ye not, say they to them that prophesy. All right, so those that prophesy, the prophets, they were saying to them, which Isaiah said the same thing, right, in Isaiah 30. They were saying, don't prophesy these things. Don't say these kinds of things. We don't want to hear that. They shall not prophesy to them, right? So they're saying, don't prophesy to us. Don't tell us these things, that they shall not take shame, because they didn't want to hear these things. And just like our people today don't want to hear these things, because one, they were getting called out for their iniquity. And two, Micah was prophesying things that were going to be to their detriment because of their iniquity. So they were like, don't prophesy those things. Don't say those things to us. Those are not the things that we are interested or want to hear. All right, we don't want that we don't want to feel that shame or fear from the negative things that you're pushing out there. And that's the same reaction they give us today, right? They say, oh, you're pushing negativity or you're preaching hate. No, it's calling out iniquity and declaring what the Lord has said would be the judgment for it. Verse 7, O thou that are named the house of Jacob. So you Israelites, you descendants of Jacob, this was Micah's reply. Is the spirit of the is the spirit of the Lord restrained? or straightened, which that's what it goes into, restrained or limited, right? So is the power of the Lord limited? Are these his doings? So the things that you're doing, these wicked things, are these the ways of the Lord? Are these the things he approves of? Do not my words do good to him that walketh uprightly? So you have such a problem with these words, but that says a lot more about you, because aren't the words that I'm speaking righteous? Are like, am I not calling out wickedness and saying that there's going to be judgment for the wicked? And you call yourselves the house of Jacob, right? The sons of God. So you shouldn't have a problem with it if you're doing what you're supposed to do, right? That's why he said, do not my words do good to him that walketh uprightly? Because if you're doing the right thing, this ain't going to affect you. You're going to be good. All right. It's going to be to your benefit. And you can tell that they were cut. Verse 8, even of late, my people is risen up as an enemy. So even till this day, like today, there's a saying, as of late, right? And this is the Lord speaking through Micah, saying that to this point, these people have, in their ways and in their actions and in their deeds, have risen up like an enemy to me, because they have become adverse to my ways and my will. Ye pull off the robe with the garment from them that pass by securely, as men averse from war. Pulling off the robe and the garment is a way of saying they rob them completely. Okay, because that's like it's like a way of saying that. Now, that's not to say that they might not have actually been robbing them out of their actual clothing, but it's more of a figure of speech, okay, which is like the outer garment plus whatever else you got. And as it says, from them that pass by securely. So these are like people that are passing through securely, meaning like they're not coming in a hostile sense. That's why it says as men averse from war. When you're averse, let's go into that word averse. It is like the opposite, right? So these aren't men that are here for war per se. To turn back, to return, right? So turning back from war and putting it together. If I pull this up again, let's look at the let me see. Okay, and ESV is not bad. It says here, but lately my people have risen up as an enemy. You strip the rich robe from those who pass by trustingly, with no thought of war. See? And they did this once again by their fraudulent and scheming ways. And this was a part of the things that angered and displeased the Lord, in not dealing honestly with one another. Verse 9, the women of my people, and Jake still do that today. When if you go to a place that you're not familiar with how they do things over there, Jake will very quickly and easily scam you or pull one over you. And it isn't until you go back and you're like, yo, I got this thing over here for X, Y, and Z. And then they're like, why'd you pay so much for it? And you're like, wait, what do you mean? Isn't this the regular price? They're like, no, it ain't no regular price over there. Because they know you're not from there. They could take advantage of you. And they do that today. Verse 9, the women of my people have ye cast out of their pleasant houses. And you notice it says pleasant houses, right? In other words, to evict them, or to take advantage in whatever way they could to get that property. All right. And this would usually be the case if the woman didn't have one to, like, say, defend or provide for them, like a widow woman, right? One example is the woman who was a husband, I believe, of one of the sons of the prophets. And when her husband died, she was in debt, and she went to Elisha to ask for help, right? Because the debtors were now there to collect. So by that, so these rich Israelites, they loved to lend. And it wasn't because, oh, you know what, you're when you lend to someone, it should be in the mindset of, you know what, you need help, you don't have it right now, it's fine, I'll lend it to you, and then you just pay it back when you can. That's the whole point of lending. These people had the mindset that, oh, I'm lending because I'm going to gain from this. I'm lending because I know your position. I know you won't be able to pay me back exactly the amount when you have to. And when that opportunity comes, I'm going to use that to get whatever else you may have. That was their motive behind lending. So they love to lend out because it's like loan sharks. They could get more, right? To them, it was like an investment. They get more out of what they've given. And they use this as means to get people's houses, their property, their inheritance, and so on. As it says here, from their children have ye taken away my glory forever. So the things that the Lord has given to them, let's say their God-given rights, they took advantage of them and took it away, right? NLT, you have evicted women from their pleasant homes. And why did it mention pleasant homes and not raggedy homes? Because that's what they wanted. It looked good, so that's what they want. And forever stripped their children of all that God would give them. See, all the blessings or whatnot. At the very least, we have this land that was left to us, from our parents or our forefathers. Oh no, now it's ours now because you can't pay back your debt, so we'll just take the land. Or you could just sell your son or your daughter into slavery and they can serve us. Which one would you prefer? Like shit like that. Verse 10, arise ye and depart, for this is not your rest. Because it is polluted, it shall destroy you, even with a sore destruction. Now, this is also one of the verses that we use similar to verse 1 and 2 in the sense of applying it here to Babylon today. Okay, but back then, when Micah was saying this, it was more so in the sense that, arise and depart, as in you're about to get taken up out of this land. And you had other prophets that were mentioning it too, by the words of the Lord, right? He said, due to your wickedness, right, I'm going to basically take you out of the land that she may enjoy her Sabbaths. So you're about to get taken up out of this land, right? Dealing with, at the time, ancient Israel. For this is not your rest, i.e., it used to be a place that I had given to you as a rest, but no longer will it be because of the iniquity that you've been committing. So I'm gonna basically remove you out of this place where it's no longer gonna be a place of your rest or comfort, because it is polluted. And how did it become polluted? Because of the iniquity. We just read a couple of verses of it that they were committing, and it ranged anywhere from murder, adultery, idolatry, fraudulent, defrauding your neighbor, dishonoring the Sabbath, all these different things. And that caused it to be polluted in the eyes of the Lord. That's why he had even his temple that was built destroyed. And as it says, it shall destroy you, or it's gonna warrant judgment against you, which is gonna destroy you, even with a sore destruction, right? It's gonna be an intense judgment. And when you read throughout the history of Israel, that's what you did see. Okay, the book of Lamentations goes into how sore the judgment the Lord brought against us was. Okay, but now in the modern sense, we know that this is applying here to Babylon, okay, or America. And in the modern sense, when we use typically Micah 2 and 10, it's for us who are in this place to arise and depart, not physically, okay, but mentally, right? Wake up out of the way of this world and separate yourself by putting on the mind of Yahushua. Okay, because this isn't our rest. All right, this is a place now of our captivity, and we're not brought here to be made comfortable because it is polluted. And when you look around you, it's similar, right? Why was, say, ancient Israel polluted? Why was the land polluted? Because of the people and the ways of living and the things they did. Well, why do you think Babylon is polluted? Once again, because of the people, the things they're doing, the policies that have been set, and the wickedness that has been promoted here. It has made this place polluted. And if you walk in the ways of this world, you will be polluted. What is the Lord going to do to this polluted land? He's going to destroy it. So if you are a part of that, you will be destroyed with it. Okay? It's like if a building is on fire, right? The fire is going to destroy and consume the building. If you stay in the building with it, what do you think is going to happen to you? You're going to be destroyed along with it. All right? So Likewise, the pollution is destroying this, is going to warrant the destruction of this place. But if you stay here and get polluted with it, then you're likened onto being a part of this place that will be destroyed, even with the sword destruction, which in this time, that's going to be by way of you're going to have, before the missiles hit, you're going to have actual civil unrest. You're going to have buildings being broken down, cities being troubled, famines, pestilence, and then eventually fire to actually dissolve it all. Verse 11, if a man walking in the spirit and falsehood do lie, saying, I will prophesy unto thee of wine and of strong drink. So when a false prophet comes about, and when they prophesy about wine and strong drink, that's more of peace or a good time or prosperity. He shall even be the prophet of this people. So somebody coming in and prophesying about times like that, like what these pastors do and these false prophets even do today, those are the kinds of people that you are quick to listen to. Those are the people that you would look to and say, yeah, that's my kind of prophet. All right. In the NLT, it says, suppose a prophet full of lies would say to you, I'll preach to you the joys of wine and alcohol. That's just the kind of prophet you would like. Once again, Isaiah said the same thing, right? Isaiah 30. They tell the seers, see not, and the prophets prophesy not unto us right things, speak unto us what? Smooth things, prophesy deceits. That's what they want. And that's why they fill up and run after these false prophets. And these false prophets have such a large congregation because these people love it so. Now, in verse 12 and 13, right, now comes a shift, right? This is the balance of the mercy. So it starts off with calling out the wickedness, pronouncing the judgment the Lord would bring. Basically, you wouldn't escape it. And then it finishes off with, at the end, regardless, the Lord is still going to have mercy on you. But there's an emphasis on how and who it's going to start with, which is the remnant. So verse 12, I will surely assemble, which is what? To gather. O Jacob, all of thee, I will surely gather the remnant of Israel. So that all of thee is really starting with the elect. They're the ones that are going to get gathered first. But in process of time, all Israel is gonna come through that. So that's why it emphasizes here, I will surely gather the remnant of Israel. And that gathering starts by this word being preached, and the remnant or the elect, the believers, hearing it and being gathered in spirit, because now we're all unified or one through this truth. And then it manifests, obviously, in prophecy by physically being gathered when Yahushua comes back. I will put them together as the sheep of Basra. Now, the word Basra here is used more in the sense of the meaning of the word, or its root word, than the identification of the place, because we know this is associated with Esau, Edom. But here it's used for its meaning of enclosure or fold or sheepfold. And when you go into the, as it says, feminine from H1219, right? When you go to the root word, it's to gather, right? To fence. And that's why it's likened onto a sheepfold. So here, Basra can be interchangeable with like a sheepfold or a pen where you would gather your sheep. That's why the latter part sort of explains that, right? I will put them together as the sheep of Basra, as the flock in the midst of their fold. So the Lord is going to gather his elect together. They shall make great noise by reason of the multitude of men. This is a way of saying that, you know, you're going to be gathered and you're going to increase, because the more people there are in a place, the louder it is. And they could just be talking, having a regular conversation, but the more people there are, the more the louder it becomes. So when it mentions here, there's going to be a great noise by reason of the multitude of men, is to signify that you're going to increase, you're going to grow. The breaker is come up before them. They have been broken. They have broken up and have passed through the gate. The breaker is referring to Yahushua. All right. And another way of looking at it would be like the Redeemer. All right. Or the one who would break us free of this captivity. And I'll get a precept for this. But as it says, they have broken up and have passed through the gate, right? So we have been broken free from this prison and passed through the gate. We've been let out. They are gone out by it, and their king, and this is referring to Israel, by the way, and their king shall pass before them. So we know when you look at the hierarchy of order, right, we have the Most High, then we have Yahushai, and then we have King David, which is under him over Israel, right? But the ultimate king we know above us all, right, is Yahushai. And so when it says here, shall pass before them, it means he's going to lead us to what? To salvation. And the Lord Yahweh on at the head of them. So the Lord, the Heavenly Father, will be all the way at the top, guiding us all, right? Orchestrating it all. Now, let me pull this up in another translation first, and then I will get a precept for it. So NLT, your leader will break out and lead you out of exile and through the gates of the enemies, or the gates of the enemy cities, back to your own land. Your king will lead you. The Lord Yahweh himself will guide you. Okay, and real quick, let's go to Isaiah chapter 42, verse 7. Right, and this is dealing with Yahushai. Right, so it says here to open the, let me see actually. Yeah, it's dealing with Yahushai. So it says here to open the blind eyes, to what? To bring out the prisoners from the prison. How's that going to happen? By a prison break. And them that sit in darkness out of the prison house. I am the Lord Yahweh, that is my name, and my glory will I not give to another, neither my praise to graven images. Let me see. Let me jump down now to verse 13. It says here, the Lord shall go forth as a mighty man. He shall stir up jealousy like a man of war. He shall cry, yea, roar. He shall prevail against his enemies. See? And he's going to do that when he comes back to deliver us. Okay? Going forth before us or leading us as a mighty man of war. All right. And that brings us to the end of the book of Micah, the 2nd chapter. Lord willing, this was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Racha Kodash. Until next time, Shalom.